Hey guys, going live.
We're going
Swipe
live.
up. Andrew, what's up?
What do they do?
Swipe up.
So everyone did catch that part live.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm.
What
Well,
the hell?
Well, they heard it,
Hello,
didn't see it,
live people.
but now they can see us now.
Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
What happened when?
Soon.
What did I do?
Oh,
Oh, there we go. I hit some sort of weird button.
the
And then-
button.
The button.
Yeah, and then something happened. Something weird happened.
Okay. So, hello everyone who's live.
So today we're talking about building big pecs,
big pecs for big checks
or are we talking about big triceps?
for big. Damn it, my rhyming
What's this?
sucks.
Triceps, biceps? No,
I was
triceps,
trying to think of something outside of,
biceps,
of fitness. But
big triceps.
we
need to
suck, man.
do a
You're
lot-
supposed to be good at this.
I
Actually, you're the
know.
rhymer in
I know,
the
I-
crowd.
I know I'm not usually that bad at it, but yeah, sometimes
It's not that bad.
I don't know. Triceps is hard, but we'll work on it.
It's funny because people would probably look at us and be like, "This is the guy that should be able to rap," when I'm not the one,
Somebody should be able to do something on this show,
right?
right?
Hmm.
Oh God.
Now I can't stop thinking about that.
I know.
Game over.
And the audience can't stop thinking about it either.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm excited about today's topic because I love talking about mindset stuff. I know sometimes people can be put off by it because like, man, like motivation, da 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 da. But I think that all of us are very, very guilty of adopting a fixed mindset to like protect ourselves sometimes. You know, you think about something that you want to try to do that you're not great at. It's easy to just say, yeah, I'm not going to really mess with that because I'm not good at it.
Yep.
Or even using words that are more damaging, saying like, I can't do that, or I'll probably never be that good at that. Examples of this I've seen happen a lot in business where someone might say, this like, oh, I'm going to start this t-shirt business. It'll probably never be a big business, but I'm going to start it anyway because it's going to be fun. It's like, why? There's no reason to say that, you
Mhm.
know, just you're going to start a business. You want to see what you can do with it. It might start out being smaller, but you never know. Why not give it a chance? You were talking about your mom saying the sky's the limit. If you could share some of that, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning, because like, you know how like your mindset can be formed drastically by the way that your parents think, the way that they teach you. And I was just thinking like, okay, well, my mom's a single parent, but like, why is it that maybe I think some of the way I do? And there's something that she'd say to me all the time. And I remember like as early as I could remember, she'd always say the sky's not the limit. And my grandma would also say that too. And it's like, yeah, there's this saying that the sky's the limit. And that's supposed to be like, yeah, you can go towards the sky. But my mom was like, no, the sky's not the limit. Why would there even be a limit? So she kind of always drilled that into my head. And along with that, like my mom did a lot of things to me from a young age that made me just kind of realize that I could literally do anything or hang with anyone. And the primary thing, the first thing that she started with was like she enrolled me in college classes as far as music when I was 6. So there was a day that we had a keyboard in the house, and I was like, she saw that there was something playing on the TV, and I kind of just went on the keys and did some random shit, and it wasn't good, but I could hear the notes, and I wasn't playing great, but she's like, huh, oh, that's good. Keep trying. And then because at that time there was the ability to do this, she's like, okay, you should go take some piano classes at ARC, right? So then she had me taking these music classes with adults. And actually I had the highest grade in those classes as a fucking 6 and 7-year-old. But it wasn't because I was talented. It was because she pushed me. Right? She pushed me to try to learn these things along with these other people. And that kind of gave me the confidence early on to just be like, I really like it. I don't need, like, just because they're adults doesn't mean, number one, that they're smarter than me. But number two, she gave me the confidence to think I could do whatever I wanted to.
And we've seen that many times in the gym, lifting, when I was doing my bodybuilding show, I lifted with a bunch of different people to prep for the show. Shout out to my boy Andrew over there for pushing me a lot. But I trained a lot with Ryan Spencer as well. And Ryan's mindset was like, I don't fucking care that Mark weighs, 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds more than me. I don't care if he's bigger than me. I don't care if he's got more experience in powerlifting. I want to lift more than him. Most workouts, he'd lift more than me.
That man's volume is like 405 for 20 reps.
Yeah, and he doesn't need a lot of rest in between sets. That's what was catching me more so than anything else, was the fact that he would just keep going, because he's like, I got 45 minutes to work out, and then I got to go jet and I got to go work.
Yep.
And look, man, if he could easily adopt the mindset of like, I need to stay in my lane. I'm a much smaller guy. It doesn't make sense for me to lift, those kinds of weights. So instead of me going to 455 for a set of 6 or 8 reps, I'm going to just stay in my lane and do 3 plates. He could have had that mindset when he was young even. And I know he played football and did a lot of other things. He's not a huge guy. I think he weighs like 170 pounds. So imagine like in high school, he's probably 140 pounds, 150 pounds, but he figured out a way to, play high school football. And so I think a lot of times our mindset can really, really hold us back, even when it comes to something as simple as just lifting weights.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Ryan Spencer, because we were talking in the gym and he was just talking about his home work, his home gym setup, and he's like, yeah, I got a sissy squat bar, and he's going back and forth about that, and he's like, yeah, and I hit 225 on it. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, is that? I mean, it's only 225. I'm like, on a sissy squat, and I was blown away, and he it was like nothing to him, and I'm like, do you understand what you just did? And I sent it to Doug Brignoli, and they were just like, what the fuck is this? They couldn't understand it either.
Yeah, when he came to super training, I mean, he was amongst like some real monsters. I mean, we had probably 20 guys in the gym that were over 300 pounds. And again, Ryan, he just didn't even, he was like, I'm just, yeah, see, like
Jesus.
he's just not even thinking about it.
Multiple reps.
Yeah.
Guys, okay, I don't want to stop you from your train of thought.
No,
but go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, just, he was at super training gym when we had guys, squatting 1,000 pounds, guys benching, 800 pounds and deadlifting 800 pounds. And he just thought, like, rather than like kind of having a negative mindset, like, hey, this isn't for me, I'll never be like these guys, I'll never be able to do that. He's like, no, I think I can beat these guys. That was his mindset. And a lot of times he did. A lot of times he'd kick our ass. I mean, the guy's pulling, I think I've seen him deadlift 675 before.
Yeah, he has.
I mean, he's the monster. And he's, he's also, I think, 45 or 46.
Yeah.
Something like that.
He's not, I mean, he has the body of a spring chicken, but his age is not a spring chicken. But this is the thing. I'm happy that we kind of came across this right here, because Andrew, can you look up that dude that came over here and made some content, Julian Baldy? Julian_Baldy is his Instagram. And the reason why I want to pull that up too is because if you can find his back extension. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this, guys, is because like Ryan Spencer just showed right there. I don't think I could sissy squat 225, by the way, because I mean, shit, like, I don't think I could.
Well, talk about having a broke mindset. I wouldn't even try it.
I wouldn't try it.
Right?
I'd be like, nah, my knees, I'm cool.
Yeah, right.
It was so funny, like when he told me about it, I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I can do like a body weight one. And he's just like, really?
It's great. Andrew's like, I think that's a world record, Ryan.
Well, that's how I treated it. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, you just like, I explained like the whole like the physics of resistance and all that. I'm like, you just put like probably like 10,000 pounds on your quads. And he's like, really? I'm like, yes, dude. I'm thinking
he's just sitting there all jacked.
Yeah. As he goes to deadlift, I think at that point it was like 5 something, like just for reps, just for fun. Like,
before I mention this, that kind of reminds me, wasn't that kind of Jesse's story where he was just like, I'm just lifting weights in my garage and I did 500 for 40 and I just thought that was normal. Isn't that
and his brother happened to be super strong too, so they were just like, oh, this is just
normal. Everyone does this.
This is how it goes. Michael Hearn's another example. When he used to go to the gym, he would go to a gym that had world famous powerlifter Bull Stewart, and Bull Stewart was continuously benching 500 pounds, deadlifting 800 pounds, squatting 800 pounds. So Mike never viewed it like, oh, I'll never have a shot at this. He was just like, I'm just young.
Dude.
I'm young, and like I'm gonna, and look at Kobe Bryant's career. Kobe Bryant's career is that he used to play with the I was gonna say the Eagles. He used to play with the Philadelphia 76ers all the time
Yeah.
when he was like a little kid. He's I don't know 14, 15, something like
Yeah.
that.
I wasn't able to find it, so I'm gonna scroll if you could help me.
Okay, we'll see a back extension soon. Well, number one, let's look at that transformation real quick. Go there and to the left. All right. So the cool thing about Julian and his trainer Adon we were talking about this after we made some content, but he showed me video of Julian when the dude was like 14, 15, 16. You wouldn't see the dude as being like an athlete,
Mhm.
didn't scream built different athlete. He was just like, he just looked like a normal guy. But Julian's mind, when it comes to training, Adon was like, this dude just fucking works and he works and he works and he works and he doesn't let his body determine what he's able to do. That's why Julian, number one, he had such a crazy transformation. But when you find that back extension video, he back extensions 275. Like, let's see if we can find that actually. Now the cool thing is like 275 on a back extension. Maybe some people hear that they're like, what's the big deal? A back extension is very difficult, like very fucking difficult. And like, for example, when we were doing it together and I was like, just doing some back extensions, me doing 135 pounds, I was like, wow, even though I can deadlift over 600, I can maybe still deadlift 700. This back extension's not easy. It's a big weak link, and he's done 275. Looks like, I don't know, it's not there anymore for some reason.
Yeah, I'm
But
having a
anyway.
hard time finding it.
But anyway, like that's not something that most people can do. They can't do that. It takes a lot of grit, and it takes a lot of just like putting your blinders on and just doing what's in front of you in training. And I think you mentioned something really cool there, how like Mike O'Hearn, for example, and then there was somebody else you mentioned, but they just put their blinders on and they didn't necessarily pay attention to what everyone was doing. They were like Jesse Norris too. They were just like, okay, I'm just going to train and I'm going to get as strong as possible and as big as possible. And I'm just going to see what I can get to. But a majority of people nowadays, especially when I see stuff on like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, when I see some of these comments, all these people are like, drugs, steroids, drugs, there's no way it's impossible. I'm just like, that's why you look the way you look, brother.
Right.
Like, seriously.
Yeah, not open to the fact that like maybe the guy got there through hard work, and even if the guy did take drugs, we talk about this often too. Is there's always a body of work behind everything that anybody does. As far as I know, I've never seen anyone just like take a pill and like totally be able to change everything, including their mindset. So you have a broke mindset. You can have a broke mindset with money. You can have a broke mindset without money. You can have a broke mindset on steroids. You can have a broke mindset off steroids. It's always going to serve you best to be a little bit more open-minded or work on that, so that you can kind of just work on improvement. And I think people get really confused about like what success is. All that success is progress. That's all that it is. It's just, how can you make some progress? How can you, and then how can you continue to have progress? Progress is the number one marker of success. And then usually what determines that, and this is why I talk about this often, is normally it's an interest level. You're just interested. You're interested enough to overcome all the other obstacles. Another great example that we have in our circle, we have many examples of people that have just some savage mindsets, is someone like Jeremy Avila.
Oh my God.
Jeremy
Yeah.
Avila, and this isn't all, comeback stories all the time with what we're talking about for today, but that guy used to have a really, really bad drug addiction. He used to be really, really skinny. He used to look the opposite of the way that he looks now, pretty much. He looks jacked. He's really strong. He can deadlift nearly 900 pounds, but he went through many, many years of his life where he'd probably be hard for him to deadlift 315, which doesn't, you're like, what? How did that happen? At some point, Jeremy changed his mind. At some point, he was like, you know what? And every time Jeremy's around, you know what you're going to get every time. He's always super happy.
Yeah.
He's always laughing. He's got the biggest smile in the room. He's like just happy to be there, you know, and maybe it's because of his past experiences. He nearly died a couple times, but you don't have to nearly die to have a mindset that's a little bit more open towards growth and towards making progress.
Yeah, I think that first off, I didn't know that like he almost died. That's wild. Yeah, that's the main thing I noticed about Jeremy. Whenever I see him, he's always pumped. I've never seen him not pumped about like to be there or to be doing something. So that's one big thing. And then what you mentioned as far as the progress thing, that's a big deal, because when an individual has a fixed type of mindset, they don't they're not focused on their progress. They're more so focused on like when I'm doing something, how does it like they're focused on doing things for other people. Usually it's like, okay, if I can get big, this will impress this, or this will do this. Like they're usually not focused on doing it for themselves and doing it to see what type of progress they can personally make. They're not focused on themselves. They're focused on all these outside sources, right? And if they don't, for example, if you don't meet the expectation of what you want, like for example, let's say you want to study real estate, right? And then you maybe do your course, you get your license, and you start the whole thing in terms of selling houses. But your first year, you have a really tough go at it, and you're not doing as well as maybe somebody else that's fucking made millions already in their first year. So you're like, all right, I'm not good. This isn't for me. This definitely isn't my thing. I can't do this. Oh, there we go.
That was work to find it.
Yeah, you have to go all the way to
It
TikTok.
was on Barstool U TikTok.
Yeah, that's a 275-pound back extension. That shit, that's
I mean, even the way he threw it off was
right. He was just
impressive.
like, right? But they're always focused on everybody else, and if they're not meeting that expectation, they're done, right? But if you just look at your progress and you're actually interested in what you're doing, no matter how long it takes you to do it, you will eventually get there. It's just a time game. You can learn and you can continue to progress in certain realms, and at some point you'll get to that destination. Could have taken somebody 1 year, 2 years, might take you 4 or 5 years. But at the end of the day, you're going to get there if you put your blinders on and you focus on yourself, you stay interested, and you keep progressing.
I think it's sometimes hard to recognize like what's in your best interest, so I want to just also point out that we have broken mindsets a lot of times on a lot of things, and somebody could easily break us down and, find us saying, I can't, or find us saying, I don't mind like going into the ocean, but I'm not going in like too far. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I'll boogie board with my family and stuff like that. But like, if you saw me out there, I'm a big pussy. Like I'm pretty scared. And I know what being scared does to you. It's not helpful. It's hurtful.
Yeah.
Being scared and flopping around in the water and shit, it's only going to drown you. That's all it's going to be helpful for that. It's not going to be something that's going to be a benefit, especially if you are to get in some sort of compromised position. So we could go, out in the middle of the sea with the greatest scuba diver in the world, and they could say, Mark, you're going to be totally fucking fine, man. But this will be really good for you. This is going to be a great experience. I would not be able to attach it to, I get it. I understand it. I understand like, hey, if I jump out of a fucking plane or something, that could be transformative in some way. But at the same time, either one of those things, I'm probably not going to do them. I'm going to think to myself, even if I know better than to say I can't, I'm going to be thinking in the back of my head, like, you shouldn't do this, dude. Like, this is not a good idea. And someone could lay it out and they can be like, dude, we've had other people in your exact same position do this. And when they did this, they doubled their business. They doubled what they could do in fitness because, swimming does this, or they could tell me all kinds of stuff and it could even be right. And I wouldn't be able to see it enough. I would be, my previous experiences would kind of keep me on lockdown from like opening up to those things. So we get it and we understand it. But what I'm trying to, we're trying to impress upon you today is maybe you don't go out into the middle of the sea in the middle of the night, but maybe you put your toe in and kind of check the temperature of the water. You know, maybe you find a way to incremental progress every single thing in your life, the way that you would do with weights and the way you would do with learning, the way you would do with just about anything else in your life.
Yeah, just it's funny. It reminded me. I went to this place called Immigrant Gap recently, right? And I don't jump I don't jump things into big bodies of water. Never have. Not my thing. But there's a big waterfall that's like 50 feet, and then there's a small waterfall that's like 20 feet, right?
20 feet is far.
Yeah, it was. It was.
It's
And,
really
I mean,
far.
10 feet would be scary still.
yeah. So I went with some homies, and my ass was like, "Shit, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." But I was like, fuck, I was scared the
You
whole
had a
time.
couple of friends that just ran and jumped, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, two of them didn't. Two of them chose not to, but the other woman I was with, she chose to. Now,
You're like, damn.
yeah, we did
hate
the small
that.
one first. She was like, okay, let's do the small one first. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we got up there. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Just fucking jump. So I jumped in. I was like, okay, that was cool. So we went up to the big one. And when I got into the big one, someone at the bottom was like, don't jump too far. You could hit the rocks on the other side. I was like,
come on.
like, because if you jump with too much momentum, you could just smash your body on the rocks on the other side. So they're
That
just
sounds like fun. I mean, I'm so glad that, I'm not. Why didn't you invite me?
I showed you the video, right?
I saw the video,
showed
but
you the
like
video.
you didn't invite me to say you're crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just like, so then I just jumped
Sounds
off.
terrible. Why do people do that? I just don't understand.
But that's the thing. You start with something small,
I
right?
guess.
You dip your toe in, and then you do the bigger thing, and it's just like it wasn't that bad. I would do that jump again in a heartbeat. Now
Was the water cold?
it was freezing.
I'm
It was
out.
also super deep.
Doesn't matter
I've
how
never
high
jumped
it is.
into such deep water. But I do that shit in a heartbeat. But I used to not think that I would ever do something like that. So,
Yeah, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe you wouldn't have tried it at all.
oh fuck no,
Right?
no. And the funny thing is, like, obviously this is something that I did with some white people. Like, only y'all are crazy enough for this.
Crazy ass white people.
Only y'all are crazy.
Leave it
for
up to us.
I'm just being real, y'all. You need some adventurous white friends. To go camping, nature.
Serial killing and like extreme sports, we got those down on lockdown pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, man. If you wanna do some adventurous shit, get some wilderness friends.
Brutal. I don't know if I would go off the higher one.
No.
I think you would.
I'd
It'd
have
be
a hard
tough for
time
me.
just getting in the water if it's cold.
No, you get used to that.
That's
You get
what
used to
everyone
that.
says.
Yeah.
I think it's
don't.
kind of last of your concerns when you're 50 feet up, though, right?
You're right. Yeah, the big concern is not hitting the rocks on the other side. That's the big
I'd
concern.
also just be worried about like coming back up. Like you must have went down pretty far when you
Oh,
right? Like
yeah.
I don't know, 12 feet, 10 feet.
And with the bone density.
Deeper than that. Deeper than that. Yeah, that water just went. It was just deep. So I just yeah. There was
Did it
some-
hurt at all?
No, it didn't hurt.
No, you just
That's
Didn't
land
hurt.
just your feet first or whatever, right?
Yeah. I'll post the video after we finish up here. Y'all see what I'm talking about.
My wife and I were talking about because we went to San Francisco yesterday, and we're like, what happens to people like if you jump off a bridge? Like, why is it like concrete? You know, they say it's the same as like concrete, like you'll break your
Really?
bones. Yeah. And I was like, why? I was like, why is that? Like, are you like if you jump from 50 feet, are you still picking up speed at 50 feet? Like, I don't understand what happens, but I guess you
You hit terminal velocity.
and you get fucked up.
Yeah.
How high is that? I wonder how high that bridge is.
I don't know, probably 100 or 200 feet.
Ooh. Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
shit.
I think you can survive it sometimes, but I think most of the time, I think it kills you. Maybe it knocks you out. I don't know.
Jeez. Who
Maybe
knows?
you like pass out on the way down, you drown. I have no idea.
Wait, you're talking about the Golden Gate Bridge? Sorry.
Yeah, any of
Or
those.
any,
Any of
It's
those
a really
bridges.
high
yeah,
bridge.
yeah, Bay Bridge.
yeah.
I think it was
feel
on the
like
Bay Bridge.
If you point your toes, you go in like a.
I know. I don't think it works that way for some reason.
No, so at that height, I believe, because that's where some people that's where they will try to end their lives.
Right.
They don't make it, but sometimes they'll just break through and they'll be like, oh fuck, I'm glad that was a bad idea. It's like,
Mhm.
oof.
They just break a couple bones instead
Yeah.
of dying.
Dang. How
Anyway,
did we get here? How did we
Well,
get
because you
here?
were talking about jumping in.
Oh, yeah.
Where was this place, by the way? I know you said the name, but
It's
like
called
where?
immigrant.
It's Emigrant. Gap.
Immigrant.
It started from probably Immigrant, though.
Yeah, it probably started from Immigrant, but
Just
it's like a
Puta Creek.
it's like a little secret spot. People know how to get to it.
Okay, cool.
I don't even remember how to get to it, but
You were blindfolded by the white people?
I just am bad by geography. I'm just really bad at geography. Like, if you take me somewhere, I can't tell you how to get to it. I'm relying on maps.
Mhm.
But again, you know, that's that trying new things aspect of things. You know.
These small steps, that we're talking about here, I think, maybe for Nsima and I, when it came to fitness, the small steps were already partially done because we played sports. And so the migration, the walking into the weight room and lifting weights, like, was probably, I know for me, it wasn't really anything that I really thought about that much. It was just like, oh, this is, especially for football, and especially at that time, it's like, you play football and you lift weights. It's like part of it. Whereas for other people who don't maybe have that same introduction, or maybe are playing a sport where lifting may not, for some reason, lifting sometimes still isn't encouraged, but I think it should always be encouraged. Maybe your first walk in the weight room is the equivalent of us, going out in the middle of the sea and jumping into the ocean. So it's, but I think there are, smaller introductions to stuff that you can do. Number one, you can find a friend that's already into lifting and say, hey, can I tag along with you someday? You mind showing me a couple things? It's going to be really rare that someone's like, no, get out of here. Most of the time people are going to be like, oh my God, like, you want to get involved with lifting? Like, fuck yeah, I'll show you some stuff. And you can be on your way. You could also, like, hire a trainer, and you could literally go to them and say, I don't know anything. I'm actually kind of scared. It might sound funny, but I'm kind of nervous and scared. I don't know what I'm doing. But I know that it could be helpful to me. So, and for myself personally, what's always worked is moving really, really slow and having incremental progress over time, whether it be with business or whether it be with anything in the weight room. I would say even my transformation from years ago, I used to be over 330 pounds. I'm nowadays more like 230 pounds. I continue to get a little leaner, but I'm not leaner like necessarily every day all the time.
Yeah.
It's been incremental, and then also it's it comes and goes a bit. As lean as I am right now, I'm sure at some point I'll be a little heavier. I'll go back and forth because sometimes I feel like really leaning into it and really seeing what I'm capable of and seeing what I can do. And other times I feel like relaxing a bit, because the relaxing part kind of helps get me excited to go back in harder on pushing more. And then same thing when it comes to business stuff. Sometimes I'm on fire with business stuff. I have a lot of ideas, a lot of creations, and then I'm not as interested for a little bit, and I kind of pop back out of it. But over a long period of time, over 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, continually getting better. And to try to think that everything's going to always improve all the time, I think that is something that I would be cautious of, because I just don't think it's realistic. But for things to get better over a long period of time, in the long run, I think that is reasonable to think that. I think it is reasonable to think that you're going to lift a little bit better, you're going to be a little bit leaner, you're going to make a little bit more money, you're going to be more knowledgeable. I heard Joe Rogan the other day say, like, he's like, I got to be honest, I think I used to be an idiot, but like, from doing this show, I think I've advanced a lot. I've learned a lot. And that didn't happen slowly. I mean, he's done thousands of shows.
Yeah.
And he's prepared for thousands of comedic shows, being on Fear Factor, and all the different experiences that he's had has now led to him having, one of the best podcasts in the world. It takes time.
It takes time. And that's one thing that, whenever I see a comment that's like a question of like, oh, what would your big suggestion for getting big be, or your big suggestion for losing fat, or your big suggestion for whatever. And it may sound so cliche, but it's literally being patient with yourself. Because I think that if a majority of people were just able to be more patient, they'd be able to get to that end goal. No matter if you're trying to lose like 100 pounds or 15 pounds, or you're trying to, you know, gain a lot of muscle and get pretty big. Majority of the time, it's not just going to be this 12-week, 1 year endeavor. It's going to be the thing that you have to do for multiple years. And if you're not patient, either you'll quit because you're not seeing the progress that you're looking for in the certain amount of time you're looking for it, or you'll be able to be patient enough to get through like just to continue chipping away at it, finding small places to improve, finding small places to get better. And also, I think one big thing is doing your best to get around people that are substantially better than you, because that was one of the biggest changes for me when it came to my strength, was when I came to super training. Because before that, I was the strongest person in the gyms that I was training at that time. I came to super training, I was strong, but my bench didn't compare to Marcus or Mike or you. My bench was weak. My deadlift was still form needed, like I needed technique work. Marcus looked at it and you looked at it. You guys were like, there's a few things you could fix there. Try this, try this. I got a little bit weaker for a while because I had to change up my form. So I legit lost 70 pounds off of my deadlift, because you guys shifted some things with the way I moved. And then after a few months, my deadlift went from 650 to 715 because of the technique adjustments, because I adjusted, went backwards, moved forwards. But I was willing to take the advice of people that were better than me and to just chip away at it. I think a lot of people, they might be sticking around people that, first off, aren't looking for progress, but also they might just be sticking around people that aren't really, that aren't helping them improve. And if you're sticking around those types of people all the time, then you're just going to stay where you are. You're going to be stagnant. And if you're not very, very self-motivated to try to find that information for yourself, you're going to start to think that it's impossible to gain a certain amount of muscle. It's impossible to get bigger. It's impossible to lose all this weight.
When it comes to something like getting bigger, like that is can be a really long process for a lot of people. And it could be something that you have to be really patient with. And somebody might even, say, oh, I took advice from this guy and I really just, all that happened is I started getting fatter. And you might feel fatter and you might feel different than you did before when you go from 205 to 215 to 225 and so on. But you do have to be patient. Like maybe it's going to take a little while for your body to adjust. Maybe the training and the nutrition, will come together at some point, and you will actually recognize that by being in this caloric surplus, it does serve you best. It is in your best interest because in the long run, you're packing on a little bit of muscle mass, and at some other time, you might strip down the body fat, and it'll actually be easier to lose body fat because you increased your metabolic rate. Sometimes when people gain weight, they don't automatically increase their metabolic rate because they don't always gain muscle when they're gaining body fat. In general, your body will sort of do that for you. In general, your body will do that for you because you are getting heavier and there's more weight to move around.
Yeah.
But it's like not a great ratio, So as you're gaining body fat, it's not that body fat encourages you to gain more muscle mass in this particular case. But it means that you're in a caloric surplus, which can help your training be a little bit better, can be a little bit more efficient. It's also probably ensuring that you're getting enough protein in to help with recovery and help the muscles to get a little bit bigger. And so it's going to take time, and you're going to have to kind of sit in there and just know that it's a big process.
It absolutely is. And I think, what was I going to mention here? As far as getting bigger, yeah, here we go. For some reason, well, let me mention this. I don't know how I'm going to weave this in, but I was thinking of just transformations that I've seen, pictures of transformations. And I think one thing that is very interesting is I've seen transformations of women that were, let's say that they were a little bit heavier. They start lifting weights and they start dropping, and then the body that they have after that. Like it's like you didn't even think that they had the ability to have that type of figure. And if someone was looking at that before body, they would probably assume there's no way this woman's gonna look like a fucking fitness model or look like this. But they had so much, I guess, just so much perseverance to train and just get better in the gym that it's just like, oh damn, you look like a fucking model. Like I've seen a lot of those. I'm just like, that's wild.
I've seen some women go from not having a butt to having like a flat butt to having a big old butt.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I didn't know how to say it, but I was just like, damn, you got an ass.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we've talked before on the show about like spot reduction and like, targeting, things. But like I've seen girls like post pictures and they're like, hey, this is what I used to look like. This is what I look like now. And you're like, holy crap. Like I honestly didn't know that was possible.
Me too, because that's not genetics. That's some work. That's some lifting right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive.
It is very impressive. Now, to divert real quick, like I was just saying, like a lot of people put limitations on what they can do on their body. I never knew. Like I always knew that, okay, after a certain while, you have those newbie gains where you gain something really, really fast. And then for the years on, things just slow down a little bit, right? It's not as fast as your first 2 years. But there is a true belief, man, on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Instagram from some of these dudes. There's a true belief that after your first 3 hard years of lifting, you're not going to get much bigger. A lot of guys are really out here like legitimately thinking that. I've seen that comment so many times. I'm like, whoa, where are these guys getting this information? Like, I know the newbie gains go away, but you guys really think that if you train hard for 3 years, that's first off going to be a majority of the muscle you gain in your lifetime, and number two, that is because a lot of these guys I've seen it where there's a lot of guys that are on TikTok that are like 19, 20, 21, and they've already hopped on.
That's what I was going to ask, if that's what it was for.
They've already hopped on. And I saw this little fucking kid, 20 years old, and he made a video. He's like, yeah, I've been training for 3 years, and I did all I could within that 3-year period, and I just figured that now it's the time to, like, I can hop on, and I can, because I've peaked out my development. I was like, bruh. Are you fucking serious? Like, you really think you peaked out your development? And this isn't just this is a widespread belief.
Yeah.
It's just like wild to me. Like, no, that is not true. It's stupid.
Well, and the reason why the belief was adopted was so that you could get on some gear, probably,
Probably.
The truth is that, like, if you took anybody and they found a more optimal way to do whatever it is that they want to do, they would gain regardless of what it is. If, I wanted to learn more about biology, and I just hang out with people that do that, and I could learn it, and I could go through intensive, rigorous study, and I could learn more of it. If you want to be, if Nsima and I wanted to be bigger and focus more on bodybuilding, if we spent 2 or 3 months hanging out with like Mike O'Hearn or Charles Glass or Dexter Jackson or something like that, I mean, we're not going to not make progress. I mean, we're going to make a lot of progress. And I'm an older guy who's been lifting for nearly 30 years. And I could still make huge changes, changes that you wouldn't think were possible. But bodybuilding is a really cool sport. It does show you that there's like shit that's possible that people can do to their body that you did. The reason why I didn't think girls could like do that with their butts, I thought that had a lot to do with your hips. I thought it had to do a lot with whether your hips were internally or externally, like kind of, interior pelvic tilt. I thought it had more to do with that. I was like, well, your hips are fixed in a certain position and maybe you can't, grow it out.
Push it out, yeah.
But there is some truth that you can push it out more with certain, with how your hips are built, for certain people. It's going to be easier, but you can still build it out, as we've seen.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I think it was I think Flex Wheeler, when he was talking about girls trying to develop a bigger, of course he's like all bodybuilder, professional body. He's like the gluteus, maximus or whatever. And he said like, it's just genetics, like, will determine whether or not it grows or something along those lines.
That's just the calves. Just the calves.
Yeah. So, but I was just thinking, along the lines of what we're talking about, like if somebody, if a girl heard that and they're like, oh, all right, well, I'm out. It's like, damn. Because, I mean, who else are you going to listen to, right? You're going to listen to us or Flex Wheeler.
And that's why the genetics thing is really somewhat bothersome to me, because when you look at like when I don't know if we mentioned this on air, but like when I look at my family, um, the people on my dad's side of of the family, like none of them lift. Like a lot of them are just kind of out of shape. You know, but they're bigger. They hold a lot of
Mhm.
weight because they eat a lot of food, so they can get kind of fat, right?
Mhm.
And my dad never lifted, but he was he was just like a tall guy, but he never really lifted, right? So for me, when I started lifting, it wasn't because, oh, I see that I have these genetics in my family. I can gain some muscle. No, it's because like uh I really want to start lifting. I want to start doing this. I want to get bigger. Let's see what the fuck I can do. And I did. But I don't look like the other people in my family. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, who else do I know like this? And I thought of you, because I mean, your brothers lifted,
Mhm.
but I mean, when you look at your parents, they didn't
No.
exercise or have
No.
have something like that, right?
Nope.
So, and by the time you were 25, I think what age did you like hop on?
Yeah, it's about 25. Yep.
But you've already been lifting for 12 years and you
Yeah.
were like 220 something at that point,
Right.
right? You had your blinders on, you got really big naturally, you looked really jacked, and then you're like, okay, let's go, right?
Mhm.
So it's like you can't, the whole genetics argument. I mean, I know genetics play a role, but I've seen some people where I'm just like, you wouldn't have thought they had the genetics.
Right. Yeah, genetics are a part of it, but what you do with those genetics is probably a larger part of it in the long run. Genetics can, they can, you could have, you could have genetics that, some people talk about like people being privileged and stuff. Someone could be privileged and gifted some pretty cool things genetically, but the main thing with any sort of genetic component attached to it is that you find what you're genetically good at
Mhm.
early. And if you find the earlier that you find it, probably the better, as long as you stay interested in whatever it is that you're doing. You started out further along on the track, and now you're going to be able to continue to get further along on the track. Shaquille O'Neal was gifted a body that, no one else really has that same body, right?
Nobody has that fucking body.
And but he found basketball young. Kobe Bryant or any of these people that you see, that you would view having good genetics. It's finding what you're gifted at an early age, or any age really, is a key component to the whole thing. But what you do with those genetics is huge. How many people are 6'4" and 220, 230 pounds, the way that, or 220 pounds, I guess he is, the way that Tom Brady is? There's a lot of people that are. There's a lot of that's a big frame. He was gifted some good genetics as well. He could have been born 5'7", and it would have been very difficult. There's not a quarterback in the NFL that's currently 5'7". I think Drew Brees is like 5'9", but and Doug Flutie was really short. But for the most part, it makes it more difficult to maybe find what it is you're good at, unless you are exposed to it at a young age. And I imagine that Shaq and someone like Tom Brady was probably exposed to the sport of football at a young age. And then from there, it's a matter of what you do with it. If you look, if you're watching any of the Olympics and you start to see some of these athletes running, and I was watching some track the other day. I was watching some sprints. All the sprinters, they all have different genetics.
Yeah.
All the sprinters had butts. All the sprinters had quads. All the sprinters had hamstrings. There were some differences in the size of their calves and size of their legs in general, the size of their arms. Some were more jacked than others. But they all took a gift. They were gifted something that maybe started them off a pinch further ahead than others. They also were able to avoid some stuff that maybe other people fell into, like overeating, like they never got like real heavy. But they found what they were good at a young age, and they just leaned into it.
Man, I want to mention something, because it's like we think of like Shaq, LeBron, we think of like these physical specimens, but there was also guys in the NBA like Allen Iverson, Isaiah Thomas.
Mhm.
Isaiah Thomas, for I think a season or two, had a like a 31 point per game average, 29.
You're talking about the more recent Isaiah
The
Thomas.
more
right?
recent
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
like a 29, 30 point per game average. And how tall was he? Like 5'9"?
Yeah, he was
5'10"?
I'll look it up, but yeah, no, he was. It was him and then Nate Robinson were the shortest in the NBA.
Yeah.
And Nate Robinson's another example of another great player.
Right?
Win a dunk competition too,
I
right?
believe so.
I
Yeah,
think so.
over Dwight Howard.
Right. And Allen Iverson was just like this skilled ass dude, right? But he was shorter than everybody, but he like people are like, as far as basketball skill, AI was one of the greatest, and he was also one of the shortest. And the reason why I say this is because everyone always is so focused on, do I have a talent for this? Am I talented? And I think that, yeah, you do want to think about that. But at the same time, you want to just put yourself in the fucking ring if you're interested in it. Because, like, I was lucky that my mom had me play soccer and stuff when I was 6, or sports in general, right? But when I started soccer, and for a lot of my years playing, I wasn't the most skilled guy on the field. Like, there were a lot of guys that had much better footwork than me. There were a lot of guys that had quicker feet than me. I wasn't like, I was a starter, but I wasn't the best, right? But I kept playing, and I managed to play in college until I got injured. Um, and when I started lifting, I was 13 at that point. But when I went into the gym, I didn't look like I had some type of innate talent for muscle. I was like I was a little bit chubbier since I wasn't able to run for a bit, but I didn't have this look where like, oh yeah, he can gain a lot of muscle. I just was like, fuck, I need something to do because I need to be physical. So I dumped into it. I started early. I had my blinders on because I had no choice but to be naive, and there's no social media. I was able to grow. But it's like that's the thing. It's like you people are so focused on, am I talented at this? Do I have an innate talent? And that's one of the things that is part of a fixed mindset, focusing on talent. And if you're not talented at it in the beginning, most people with a fixed mindset will quit, or they'll slow down, or they'll stop. But the people that have a growth mindset see, okay, I'm not talented at this. How can I get better? What can I do to get better? Cassio had this story about Uriah Faber when Uriah was training at the gym. And after every single roll that he'd get fucked up, and he'd always ask his opponent, what did I do wrong? How can I get better? What did you see? Right? And that's why he was able to do what he did.
And I think at some point, maybe being reasonable too, and just sometimes understanding like there was an end of the road with soccer for you. There was an end of the road with football for me. There was an end of the road with pro wrestling for me. And I think it wasn't like, looking back on it, I didn't have the same mindset that I have now. I didn't have some of these tools. If I had some of these tools, I think it would have been a lot easier, but I would have also probably just made decisions a lot sooner, because I would have recognized, oh my God, like you're not quite as interested in this. If you're being honest with yourself, you probably loved soccer. I loved football. I was fanatical about it. But if I was being honest, it's like I did stuff for football. I ran for football. I lifted for football. I kind of ate for football, but I didn't, there was still another level that I could have gone to. I could have definitely gone to like more camps and got around more coaches. There was just little stuff that maybe I ignored it because I wasn't interested enough, but I didn't get around like people that were way better than me. In my area that I grew up in, like football was like, people liked football, but it wasn't like a thing in my area. And so therefore, like, as far as I knew, which again, I didn't look into it much, there wasn't like really great coaches assisting kids to like, get to the college level and so forth. But I just didn't have that same mindset back then. I kind of thought that I was kind of fixed to a certain body, that I was fixed to certain positions on the football field. And I kind of thought that I couldn't like grow past that, or couldn't get around that. And now, I recognize that like I could have worked on or worked my way towards whatever I wanted to. But I think, we adopt some of these beliefs, like you're talking about, these people that are adopting these beliefs on social media, and these people that are having kind of a fixed mindset. I think it goes beyond just them having a fixed mindset for themselves, which would be fine. I think they're putting other people into boxes too. And I think they're saying like, oh, that guy's a bodybuilder, he'll never do good in powerlifting. Or when I went from powerlifting to bodybuilding, a bunch of people, kind of took a shit on, oh, it's a publicity stunt. He'll never be able to do that. His waist is too thick. It's not going to work out. He's not going to he'll probably get like in shape. He'll probably get on stage, but he probably won't get that lean,
Mm-hmm.
And no, you can take it. I took that pretty much, I think, is about as far as I could go in the amount of time that I did it. But I think that when you are putting people into a box, that you are, again, you're limiting your own capabilities. Oh, that guy had to do that with steroids. Again, I think is a great example of that, because you're imposing your belief of how far someone can go onto somebody else, and you're pushing it onto them so you could feel a little bit more comfortable with what it is that you're working on.
That's a gorilla fixed mindset. It's like you're doing it in a sly fashion. Like, oh, well, he got that big with steroids or whatever, or like he got that cut because he was using drugs or whatever. Yeah, that's why. Okay, so I can do the same thing. Like, I'm gonna go do the same shit. It's a gorilla fixed mindset. You are literally limiting yourself because you do your best to try to take away from other people's potential accomplishments. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there are people that, say they don't take drugs that do. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. That totally exists. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna get eternally flamed for this, and I'm always gonna get flamed for this. I believe Mike O'Hearn is the natty king. I believe he's natural. I really do. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to his physique and what he's been able to do at 50 something years old, when I look at that dude, I'm just like, you know what? I want to be able to do that kind of shit. At 50 years old, I want to be able to lift that well. I want to be able to have that technique. I will be able to have that technique. But then what good does it serve me to be like, the only reason Mike's that big and that strong is because he's using drugs for it. The only reason his body's that resilient is because he's using some types of drugs for it. Because what's going to happen is if that is my internal belief and I drive that into my mind, then by the time I'm 50, I'm going to need to be able to use drugs and other things to do that. But if I truly believe that I can get there, I'm internally going to start taking little actions here and there to allow me to get there because I believe I can. I think that people really underestimate how powerful the mind can really be. They really do. And they might think it's small at the time that they believe certain things, but those beliefs that you have in yourself and the beliefs that you have about other people are going to shape the way that you move and the way you think and the actions that you take. And you're going to end up in a certain spot because of the way you think and what you believe.
Absolutely. And for me, I don't really care if he's natty or not. If I'm 50 years old and I can do that on or off all of the gear, I will be so stoked.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to me it doesn't matter because it's what he does is incredible, and I mean the consistency, like it's unmatched.
No one's been that consistent. Well, I mean there are people that are that consistent, but I mean like we've seen it.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah, it's
You know what I mean?
unbelievable.
We've experienced it.
Yeah. This fucking element's amazing right now. It's hitting the
Which
spot.
one you got?
I put some in my tea this morning.
Oh, you wild man. What tea did you put it in?
I got this tea from Phil's. Istanbul tea. I don't know. It was just a different one. It's got like spices in it. But I threw the like the jalapeno one in there, and it's good. What is that one called? The jalapeno something?
There's habanero,
Mango habanero.
something habanero.
Oh.
And then there's another one.
Lemon. Is it lemon habanero and mango chili?
Yes, you are correct, sir. Thank you for
I
correcting
think I threw
us.
some mango chili in there, but it's really good.
It is good.
Are you still eating it just like dry off the like your notebook?
I do that sometimes. Yep.
Bro, we should snort some Element.
I know, right?
Not right now.
Not on air.
Well,
We'll get canceled.
Yeah, actually, you're right. No,
Be
let's not
careful,
snort
like,
Element. Some of
be
these
careful,
kids will
like
do it.
dumping it down your throat because you can kind of choke on it. But I put it on the table before and dabbed some of it. It's
Yeah, that
pretty
was
good.
fun.
It was good, right?
It was good. It was like, the
was
what's it called? The
dabbing.
pixie sticks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun dip.
Fun dip.
Yeah,
It's like having fun dip with your finger.
but with
Shiz.
electrolytes.
Yes.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Delicioso.
You guys need to check out Element Electrolytes. Links down in the YouTube description as well as the podcast show notes and wherever the hell else you're listening to this. drinklmnt.com/power project. I believe they're doing the Element Recharge Pack, which is like a eight sample pack, a 8 flavor sample pack.
Easy for you to say, bro.
I know, right? And that's, I think you just pay the $5 shipping. But if you're listening to this and they are no longer offering that, we recommend the value bundle, because you get you pay for 3 boxes, but you get 4. The new grapefruit flavor, grapefruit salt is incredible. The watermelon, those two, they did a really, really good job on those 2 flavors.
That's the KG.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna even go that deep, but that's the KG. I love that grapefruit.
So they got those 2, the citrus salt and the orange salt. The no flavor, the unflavored salt is, I mean, it's literally just salty, but I sometimes use that on my my canned chicken, like I've mentioned in the past. As silly as that sounds, but it's an easy way to keep a flavor pack, on the ready whenever you're ready to eat.
What has the internet done for you, jiu-jitsu wise? When you see like, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm sure like you guys at practice are sometimes like, dude, did you see like I didn't even know this is fucking possible, right? It's things that it's kind of like similar to hanging out with people that are better than you. The internet has kind of done that for us, especially when it comes to powerlifting and comes to physiques and things like that. You see people that are on another level, and I mean, look at the guest that we had on,
Nikki Rodriguez.
Nikki Rodriguez more recently, right? That's some unconventional shit, as far as I know. Like what that whole entire death squad does, right, is unconventional. They have a different approach to jiu-jitsu than anybody's ever seen before, and it looks like it's working really well. Otherwise, people didn't know that was possible. People didn't know. I think in some circles, people kind of almost originally thought it was like disrespectful, right? Like, no, this is jiu-jitsu. This is the way this is done. And they're like, no, fuck all that. We found something more optimal.
Yeah. The internet's an amazing thing. And I think this also, once again, falls into how powerful the mind can be. And if you're listening, no matter if you're younger or you're older, I need you to really start believing in yourself, and believe in just terms of in your self-talk and what you actually think. Because, for example, when I was a blue belt, I knew that I was weak on the feet, meaning that like if I would try to take somebody down, I didn't have good takedowns, and we really didn't go over many takedowns over at my school. So I was just like, fuck it, let me just watch a bunch of takedown videos and let me just like drill that into my mind, because I know we don't really drill it much, so I might not have time to drill, but let me just drill these takedowns to my mind, right? And it was before a tournament I did as a blue belt in SoCal. In that tournament, I hit two pretty complex takedowns that I've never done before in practice, and I hit them pretty flawlessly. It was like a seonagi and something else, and I've never done those before. And it's not because again, I'm not a grappler. I didn't start off like a wrestling or a grappler or whatever, but I was just drilling it in my mind, saying, okay, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. These are the grips. That's your legs. That's what you do. And I did those literally just from seeing it and playing it over and over. And I believed I could. And I think one of the big reasons I believed I could is because, remember, we had a conversation about John Jones. And you told me how John Jones had the comment of like, he'd do certain things and people would be like, John, how the fuck do you do that? He's like, well, I watch YouTube videos. Right? And I was just like, hey, what the fuck? That makes a lot of sense. Let me go watch a bunch of YouTube videos.
How'd you learn how to strike like that? He's like, YouTube.
YouTube.
People were like, fuck this guy.
And that's legit. That's real. He's the GOAT. But you see, this is an interesting thing too. John Jones learned a lot of things in unconventional ways. And yeah, he did get busted for taking certain things, but certain people will continue to just take away from him, and not realize how strong that man's mind is. Like, people don't realize that shit. Another thing is like, I think that videos have made like learning things in terms of jiu-jitsu massively beneficial. But one person's mind that I think is so interesting, that is such a savage, is David Goggins. Because when I hear about the types of runs that he would do when like he had fractures all over his feet and he was still running. I'm not telling anybody to take it that far, but again, I'm just saying that to emphasize the idea that the mind and the belief that you have are so fucking powerful that it can allow you to do things that most people would think is not humanly possible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And if you were to simplify wrestling, you were to simplify this idea of like takedowns, It'd be very easy. It'd be very easy for you to be at jujitsu and think like this is mixed. This is martial arts, and this is one martial art, and like I don't know how to take people down. So I'll always probably be weak at that. So I'll just work on my game from the back, right? Like I'll just when I'm on my back, I'll learn how to be better at that, and I won't expend a lot of energy and even bother to take anybody down.
Yeah.
Because I might get caught in a weird thing too. Like, so I'm just gonna like be more passive. It might change the entire way that you like that you play the whole game, right?
Yeah, it will. And this is, man, this is another thing where belief comes in. Or when within a realm or within a field, if there is a conventional belief of this is how something's done, or these are how certain people do things, or this is it, it's very easy for people to fall in line because that's comfortable. One big thing within jujitsu is how, like in the ultra heavyweight classes, and yeah, the guys that are really heavy, none of them can play guard. And guard is like when you're on the bottom, it's more of a smaller guy game. And big reason that people think this is because when you're a bigger guy and you're usually practicing at your school, you're usually always on top because you're big and strong. So most big guys
You end up there a lot.
You end up there a lot. So most big guys go into jujitsu believing that they can't develop a good guard because that's a small guy game. You know, I'm big, I'm not flexible, I'm not mobile. There's no way I'm going to be able to build a good guard, right? But because I got fucked up at Worlds as a white belt, I think it was a white belt, I was like, you know what? All these big guys don't fucking play guard. Let me work on that shit. And now I'm known for having a good guard as a big guy. You know what I mean? Because I didn't believe that big guys can't play guard well. I saw a lot of like world champions like Roger Gracie, Buchecha, and there's a few guys at my school that like they were upper belts and they were big and they could move pretty well. So I was like, you know what? Nah, let me do that shit. And now people find it really hard to get through my guard. And that's, again, I feel like within whatever bodybuilding, they're like young kids think that there's just a certain limit to how big you can get. And there is. Everyone has a certain limit to how big you can get. But these people are now placing that belief and that limit on themselves and saying, well, I can't get that big. And guys like, there are YouTube channels that just, they have such massive followings. And I get they say that their intention, like an example is this guy named Philion. You heard of Philion,
Yeah,
right?
mhm.
He's funny.
Yeah.
I get it. I like I've watched his stuff and I'm like, this is enjoyable. But at the same time, I hear the things he says, and then I imagine if I'm 16 listening to this, and I've been lifting for 2 years, and Philion is giving me a picture of this dude that's kind of jacked. You know, he's not crazy big, but he's kind of jacked, and he's saying, oh, there's no way this guy's not this big. He's on the sauce, you know? He's definitely been taking drugs. Look how veiny he is, and how, like, if I hear that, that's just kind of pushing that belief onto me and what I can do. And then now I believe that, well, that guy is too big and he's too vascular and he's leaning around and he must be on the sauce. And then now I limit what I can do because of the general belief within the industry. And I think that's sad.
And you got to recognize too, like some of these mutants have come from somewhere, and they weren't always on shit. You know, someone like a Larry Wheels or something like that. I mean, he was moving around. Kevin Oak. I mean, even like Bradley Martin. Bradley Martin's a mutant. You know, like he looks great. He's always in great shape. He's very strong, whether he takes or doesn't take or whatever. There's some point where he didn't take anything, where he was still probably way ahead and way further along than most people.
Yeah.
What we were talking about earlier with the takedowns and wrestling and stuff like that, you know, I think it would be interesting. Like if you went to, I'm sure you're very good at taking people down, right? If you tried to take down like 50 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say it's all people that don't have a wrestling background. The one guy that you would have the most trouble with taking down, I mean, maybe he's stronger, or maybe we could point to other things, but let's just say they all weigh the same.
Yeah.
Let's say they all have this similar history. Like no one lifts or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one's spectacular in the group. One guy would just say, well, I just didn't want to let him take me down. Like it was that guy's belief. Like, I don't care. Okay. The guy's jacked and he has experience in jiu-jitsu, and I heard all that. And one person might hear that and just be like, well, I should probably just, you know, kind of go along for the ride, make sure I don't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll engage with him, but if he feels strong, I'm probably just going to like, just let it happen,
Yeah.
Whereas there would be somebody in the group who'd be like, I'm not letting this motherfucker take me down. And maybe you still have the skill to take that person down, and maybe they don't have enough knowledge to avoid your takedown, but they still might be a handful just for the simple fact that they thought, I'm going to make this guy look bad. I'm going to give this guy trouble. I'm going to give him problems. I'm going to move my legs out of the way so you can't swipe him or whatever. Maybe they only saw a couple UFC clips and they can figure out something, or they can fucking run away or something.
Yeah.
But it would be one person that would have the belief, like, I'm not going to allow that shit to happen to me. And maybe it just took longer than everybody else. But again, back to the idea of like, just kind of try to simplify stuff. What does it entail to take someone down? You ever watch, like, you watch the best people in the UFC take somebody down, and I know that there's tons of technique involved, and I don't possess any of these techniques. But from what I see, because I've watched every UFC that there is pretty much, it just looks like these motherfuckers are relentless.
Yeah.
When a guy goes for a double leg, he might not get the double leg, then he's just onto a single leg, and he won't fucking stop.
Yep.
And he'll hold on to the guy's leg forever, and he's getting elbowed in the side, he's getting punched in the back of the head.
Khabib. That reminds me of Khabib. Yeah.
They just hold on, and eventually, and I realize there's a lot of strength, there's a lot of technique, there's a lot of endurance. I understand all that, but at its base root level, it's like that guy just grabbed onto that person's leg like a fucking animal, and he won't let go. It's almost like he's too dumb to know, like, you should let go at some point because you're getting punched,
Yeah.
But they just stick with it. They stick with that belief. I'm gonna get this guy to the ground at some point.
Man, let me tell you about how. Okay, so I just thought of this right now, but I never really thought about it. All throughout athletics, growing up, there were points where I was like maybe one of the fastest guys on my soccer teams. Fastest, like sprint speed, yeah, cool. But I always had one of the, like, I was always, as far as like long mile runs, I was always in like the back of the pack. And I was always like, sometimes I was last. Like when we do endurance type Cooper runs or whatever, I'd be the guy that was like wheezing at the end because I didn't have the endurance. I was really good at just being explosive and sprinty, but when it came to endurance, I wasn't good. I believed I wasn't good too because I'd always end up at the back. And outside of our practices, I'd always be fucking trying to do runs and training. But like my body, I just really believed that I'm not a guy that has endurance. I'm a guy that gasses out.
You're like, here it happens again. Here it goes again. My legs are done.
Yeah, I'm the guy that gasses out. I really believe that about myself. And when I finished up in soccer, when I got injured, like that was still something that I thought. When I got into jiu-jitsu, initially I was gassing. But something changed in terms of me when I started doing some more bodybuilding and powerlifting and improving at those things. I changed my mindset as I started focusing on those sports. And then when I went into jiu-jitsu, I was like, all right, so I'm gassing out. And a lot of people think if you're big, you won't be able to have good endurance. Let's figure some shit out. How can we fix this? There might be something wrong with my breathing. So I got that book, The Oxygen Advantage, and I read that, and I started focusing on nasal breathing. And over time, I was like, I'm not gassing out. And now I can honestly say, I have some of the best endurance. I don't gas. I used to believe that I was the guy that always gas out, and now I'm not. I'm the guy that doesn't fucking gas out. I'm the guy that you're not going to tire out now. And people will typically say, oh, when you hold a lot of muscle, it's easy to gas out, blah, blah, blah. That shit won't happen with me. And it's just because of I may have been the guy that gassed out, but I seeked some knowledge to help me figure out how to solve that problem. Because at the end of the day, it's just a problem that can be solved.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to find it. We were lucky enough to have Patrick and Brian McKenzie and all these guys on the show. And they helped me to figure out the ways to fix my breathing so that I'm not the guy that gasses out.
So
good mindset.
Yeah. So to change that belief, you just look at it like, okay, I have a problem and I just need to solve it.
And I know that when I was younger and I was playing soccer, I didn't Google, what can I do to gain more endurance? I wasn't doing that. I was just going to practice and doing what the coaches said. I wasn't going and trying to find the answer to the problem. I was just like, that's me.
Most people aren't nearly as interested in stuff as they think they are.
You're right.
Yeah. I think maybe David Goggins, I don't know, I can't remember if it says 40% or 60%, but like he probably says 40%. But he talks about how people, they go hard, but their idea of hard is like 40%. But the encouraging thing is that 40%, like you still put in a good effort. So you're not far off. Like you need to just continue down that path. And you don't always have to be 100%. We talk about that a lot on the show. I don't even think it's wise for most people to adopt some of the things that David Goggins has done. Like it works really well for him, but I've seen other people try to adopt, this 4 a.m. training session and all these different things. And then when things aren't that challenging, they have a hard time staying on schedule and staying on point because now they're not on a diet that doesn't have any carbs, or they're not, like, it's not hard enough. Like if I'm not going to go to jujitsu 7 days a week, then I'm not going to show up for 6 months. It's like, whoa, dude, like, and maybe that's, each individual's mindset. But, I think most of the time people aren't nearly as interested in the stuff as they say. When I hear people trying to work through their thoughts and they're explaining to me why they're not losing weight, it would sound like really negative or really harsh for me to say, well, you'll probably figure it out on your own when you're more interested in it. And they would go, what? Like, no,
that's all I think about.
I've been doing cardio and I lift, and you'll probably figure it out better when you're more interested, and they'd probably come back and they'd probably be super frustrated. But that's my truth. I know that's for me. Like me personally, when I have a hard time with something, I can chalk it up to that, and I can say, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll be more interested in that some other time. So I'm just gonna like let it be, and hopefully it comes to me at some point.
Yeah. What is it about that challenge that you just said? Because I usually I'll try to get here anywhere between 6 and 6:30, but because it's just me, and then now Nico's coming in, but like it always turns into 7:15. But when we were doing the like 4:30 a.m. workouts, I was usually here on time. What is that? Like, why do you think the like, just, I guess the fun, like, excitement of a challenge, or what the hell?
Things have to be challenging. If we said, hey, we're gonna like all deadlift at midnight, come in here at midnight, like we would halfway be like, oh fuck.
That'd be hard.
But we would probably get a bunch of people to join in on the madness, and we'd probably be like, fuck yeah, like that's gonna be awesome.
Midnight
and we'd
mass.
probably be all here at 11:45 warming up, like
Yeah.
it just sounds like a good time,
Yeah.
Sometimes things do need to be like, you do need the bar to be raised a little bit. You do need things to be challenging and exciting. I think if you're like, yeah, I might get there at 7, maybe I'll get there at 7:30, it's way different than saying like, all right, well, fucking 4 a.m. And when you say that to yourself, I think automatically, maybe, I don't know how it is for women, but I think as a dude, you're like, fuck that, man. I can make that. I could figure that out. Oh, they think I'm not going to show up at 4 o'clock? I'm going to fucking be there at 4 o'clock. That's kind of how my mind works on some of that stuff. But I also just kind of have adopted the principle of like, I'm just going to get a certain amount of work done every day, and I don't fucking care how long it takes or when it happens. It's going to happen. And I also am somewhat reasonable with it, where I'm like, it doesn't matter that fucking much if it happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I put in a lot of effort every day. I work hard every day, and I'm just like, it can happen. If I missed 3 10-minute walks for today, I know that I'll probably do 4 tomorrow, or I'll get in 2 and then 3 and 3 and 3 and so on. Like I know that I'm going to be consistent enough with stuff to where it won't matter. But I think the most dangerous word, one of the most dangerous words, is when you say like maybe and might, especially when you say it to yourself, like, oh yeah, I might be there on Saturday. Like, you're not showing up. Yeah, maybe I'll see you there. Maybe, maybe I'll get in there at 7. Maybe I'll get in at 7:30. I think what you could work on maybe is just to give yourself a time and just say, I'm coming in here. But I would also maybe encourage you to have a day that's like a floater day where you don't have to come in, but I would try to decide the night before. That way, because I think what happens sometimes is that, success breeds success, but I think failure makes you feel like a failure. So when you miss shit or you get late somewhere on stuff, it probably doesn't matter too much on certain things, but like it accumulates over time, and you show yourself repeatedly that you can't do something, you can't run far, and then there you are running, and you're like, oh, here we go. I already know this about myself. I'm a fucking loser when it comes to running far. I suck at this. And you kind of repeatedly are telling yourself about it. I think one last note on the whole topic is sometimes people aren't even really working on certain things at all. Like they're not even investigating or thinking about it at all. They just want to like be better at it. They're super frustrated with something and they bring it up to you and they bring it up to you and they bring it up to you. And then you have suggestions here and there. And all the suggestions are met, with a semi-automatic weapon. They shoot all your ideas down and you're like, I know it's frustrating to hear somebody to try to fix your problems all the time, but it's like, damn, like you mentioned something. I mentioned a couple things that I thought would help. I'm not trying to hurt you, trying to assist you. And you just shot down every fucking idea that I have.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of that. Let me ask you, you mentioned the words maybe and might. What are some other words that you're very careful with when you use them? Like when you say something, you're like, oh shit, I got to be careful. Because I think the things that people say and the things that people think, sometimes they don't even know that that's holding them back. Like they don't know that saying, I might do that can be problematic in the long run. Or I'll try and see what happens. Or I'll do that and maybe it'll work. Right? They don't realize that some of this vocabulary is already setting themselves up for failure. And the way you speak is going to be a big deal. So what do you try to avoid saying so people can maybe write this down and not say it?
I work on, I work towards eliminating words, but like sometimes it's difficult to completely eliminate them because they have multiple meanings. The word try, it seems like is a fairly innocent word. I don't think there's a reason to completely eliminate it. Because but what does try do? Like I might try to go cliff diving with you sometime. It's protecting me. Like, oh, he didn't say he's going with me. He just kind of, but maybe you don't always want an out with everything. Maybe it's not always like you're thinking about going to the gym. I might try to go to the gym. It'd probably be more helpful, probably serve you better to use different language towards that. I'm going to go to the gym as soon as I feel interested enough in changing my fitness goals. That's when I'm going to go to the gym. And I'll know that I'm more interested in my fitness goals when I'm actually at the gym. But before that time, it's kind of, it's up in the air right now, I have worked towards being more careful when I use absolutes, trying to say like always or never. Like never can be really, really brutal. And my wife is somebody that she will just like let go. She'll just say what the fuck's on her mind, which is amazing. It's awesome. It's like awesome being with somebody like that who does not care. She just wants to tell you exactly how she feels or exactly how something is. But then when she says it, I have to kind of like sometimes back her up and say, well, that's not necessarily always the case. And then she's like, oh yeah, it's not, I can't always do that. It just can't always do that. But
Nope.
But there's that word can't, it gets thrown in there. But you just work towards making the language better for yourself. You work towards having, all they're really trying to do is to take all the internal dialogue that you have, you're just working towards having it serve you better. That's really all you're trying to do. And then in terms of the things that you hear, and the things that you read and the things that you see and the things that you think about yourself, you're doing the same thing with all those things. How do I interpret these things to serve me better? Not only to serve you, like you're trying to be selfish or anything like that, but how do I take this information to be more helpful to me? So again, like using the scenario of like going into the ocean, it's not beneficial to be like super nervous that you might die. Now, is it useful to know that the ocean is very dangerous, that you should never turn your back on the ocean, and that you need to watch out for bigger waves? Like there's a fucking possibility that there's a shark in there. Like, that is useful information to have going in.
Absolutely.
In case something does happen, in case you do need to be aware, but it's not useful to like be panicky about it the whole time.
Mhm.
Shit like that is some of the things I've been working on for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you and Chris were training. You said something, and he called you out on it.
Yeah, we went to do a workout the other day, and I think he said let's do some chest, and I said I can't do that because I did it like 2 days ago, and then he's like, you can, and I was like, motherfucker. I'm like, you got me. I was like, yeah. I was like, you're right, and yeah, it just burned me all day. I was thinking about it. I was like, fuck, he just totally. It's like, damn, he got me. But you know, it's good. It's good to have people keep you in check, because sometimes what we say is like totally ridiculous or totally false, and it is sometimes just conversation. Sometimes we're literally just talking back and forth. But when somebody says they can't do something, or when someone says, "Oh man, I was really worried or nervous about it," I think it's good to occasionally say, "What is it that you were actually nervous about?" And then give them some compliments towards why you think that they possibly shouldn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think you should feel that way, man. Like, are you serious? Like, you really feel that way? Because I think you're actually really good at A, B, and C.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not lying to anybody. You're sharing the truth with them. You're not trying just to pump them up for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's nervous to go and talk to their boss about something, and say, "Oh, that's great, man. You should actually go and talk to him." I don't think you should be nervous about it, because I think you're worth what you just said. You should go talk to him about it. Be great.
You should absolutely reframe your language to give yourself a shot. Don't say, I can't do that. Maybe say, I can't do that right now. Maybe how can I figure that out? I think this is an interesting thing. In my last relationship, let's say when my ex used to say that they couldn't do something, I'd always say, no, this is how you can do it. This is awesome. You absolutely have that ability. But they held the belief, and they thought I was always pumping them up or not being real, just because it was like I was so like, no, you can. So they thought that like I wasn't being genuine. But like I truly believe that.
That's like telling your significant other that they're pretty. They're like, oh, you say that all the time,
You're supposed
right?
to say
It's
that.
like, but no, I fucking think you're hot.
Yeah, right?
Like, you don't know how else to say it. You're like, okay, maybe I should stop saying it. I don't know.
Right? So if you're someone on the receiving end of encouragement, take the encouragement and then reframe the way you speak about yourself. Don't say I'm not smart, I'm stupid. Don't say I don't have the talent for that. Don't say I'm not big enough for that. Or don't say I can't. If there's something you really actually want to do, or you look at something, or you look at what somebody's doing and you're admiring it, instead of thinking of all the limitations or maybe all the advantages that person had, oh, they came from a rich family, or they had 2 parents, or this or that, fucking just be like, what did they do in their life that made them do that, or that allowed them to do that? What books maybe have they read? Like, that's a big reason why I always ask what books people have read, because that can give me an idea into how they think and like what's going on up here, or maybe what stuff they've paid attention to.
I'd also maybe try to recognize the audience, this person that may be spitting this out to you. Sometimes they just want to like be a little negative, and they want you to kind of like wallow in that with them a bit. They're kind of looking for that. But there's there's things that you can say, maybe like, rather than just trying to, I think sometimes what can happen is that if I share with you an experience that I'm struggling with, sometimes I think people feel a little bit attacked, because like, why do you all of a sudden have the solutions to it? Like, and why, like, I don't really maybe even want you to fix all my problems. I was just venting, I was venting about how I have this issue. But I think, so understanding that the person that is receiving the information, it might not be landing on them well. They may not be in a space like, oh man, you struggle with alcohol, you should, you just say, oh, you should stop drinking. It's like, well, yeah, yeah, or maybe you should get it, stop being around people that drink. Like, there's all kinds of really logical oh man, you're trying to lose weight, you should probably eat less. Like there's tons of things you could throw at somebody that are very like logical, reasonable things that would actually maybe even work. But at the same time, I think sometimes people's defenses are put up. But what you could do is you could try to put it back on them and say, oh my God, dude, like that's horrible, man. I didn't know you were struggling with that. Like that's shit, man. I don't know what I would do in that situation, but like, what do you think you can do to improve it?
That's a good one.
You know what I mean? Like what, like, and they could say, I don't know, man. I don't really fucking care at the moment. I'm just pissed, and then you're like, all right, well, that conversation's done. You kind of get an idea, but they could say, I don't know, maybe I should go get help, or maybe I should go to a seminar, or maybe and then you could say, actually, I know someone that does that. I know people that are in that field. And if you're ever interested, I could lead you towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be as like, I don't know, just out of the picture as you can without, thinking you're an expert. It's hard for me because I love philosophy stuff.
Yeah.
So I hear people saying stuff and I just like clench my fists and I'm like,
there's a meme that's like, it's like a guy like that's
he's
like waiting to speak. It's this white boy. He's just like
veins popping everywhere.
Yeah,
that's kind of what happens to me. Yeah. I'm like, but then I'm just thinking, well, they just haven't
ready for that.
Well, they may have not read some of the things I've read. They may have not have been around some of the people I've been around, and they also might not fucking care.
Absolutely.
They just literally might not fucking care.
Yeah. I'm over here cracking up because you're saying like, oh, you want to quit drinking? Well, just stop. We have this ceiling fan at my house that doesn't work. And I'm like, yeah, the switch is over there. And like, it's since we moved in, it hasn't worked. And my dad looks at it and he's like, have you pulled the cord? And I'm like,
oh, no.
I didn't even think about that.
Wow.
But sorry, so I'm over here cracking up about that. He's definitely the person that could also like rip the thing down and fix it. But what you were saying, Nsima, about like, whoever it was in your life that was like, you were not hyping them up, but they thought you were gassing them up and kind of like, if you are on the receiving end, does it matter? Like does it really, like, if somebody is bullshitting, like you can still take that and then also use it as fuel. Like, oh, if Nsima's over here saying like, oh, dude, you can be on the Olympia stage. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I can take that and be like, well, shit, I can at least look good for 4th of July this weekend.
Yeah, as long as it's not hurtful, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I just think it wouldn't matter whether or not they are being honest. Like, you can still take that and use that as like some motivation.
It's hard to believe that someone believes in you if you don't believe in yourself. Like, you can hear all that stuff, but if you truly don't believe, if you don't believe in yourself, then you'll think that people aren't being genuine with you.
Well
but
said.
I think we had this conversation on another podcast, but yeah, sometimes someone just wants a bit of empathy, and I get that. We can't all be out here just trying to spit advice. So I understand that sometimes you just got to be there and be an ear. Right. But I do like what you said there, asking them, oh, wow, that's what do you think you're going to do about it? Or not, maybe don't say, what are you going to do about it? Not like that, but like, well, what do you think the answer is? Or something. Right. Because, yeah, you'll know.
Yeah. They might say, like, if it is alcohol thing, it's like, oh, every time I get with my buddies, we all get drunk.
Oh.
It's like, you do that every Wednesday after softball, huh?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah, man.
But yeah.
Shoot.
Shit. You mentioned one thing I love hearing you talk about jujitsu is like the instant error correction that you get from jujitsu. You go for something and then you end up in some other hold and you're like, that didn't work, or you try to get out of something and then you're like, was that guy just trying to put me in something so that I ended up in this other thing?
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I think he was, because you're thinking a couple moves ahead a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
But in our own day-to-day and in our own lives, we learn a ton from error correction. We learn a ton from, like, you kind of mess something up and hopefully you can learn from that. And that's where you're changing, hopefully you're working on correcting those errors, and hopefully while you may have some beliefs, hopefully those beliefs are like things that you can move around and shift around. I mean, there's things we've talked about on the show a bunch of times about like we didn't believe that intermittent fasting made any sense. Sounds dumb. I'm sure when we talk to our guest coming up, John Anderson, he'll probably think it's the dumbest thing you ever heard of. Because we we adopt certain beliefs to serve us, and then and then we hold them, and we run to the end zone with them, thinking that these are the things that we have to cash in on, and these are the things that we have to be married to forever. But whatever the thing is that you identify with, and whatever the principles and beliefs and concepts that you have now, those things can all change. You believe that you were a big guy, and that because I'm 230 pounds and no one else on the soccer team is 230, so of course I'm going to be tired. It's like that's not helpful. Like maybe for you, maybe you have to run. Maybe some of the other guys on the soccer team don't have to run at all.
Yeah.
And maybe their conditioning is fucking awesome. Maybe some of the other guys in jiu-jitsu are the same way, or whatever it is. But like if you're the guy that has that struggle in that area, maybe you have to work on it like 3 times more than everybody else does. I felt that way in school. I had trouble reading. Things were slower. It's like, okay, well, your homework might take, rather than taking an hour, it might take 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. You want to pass? Are you interested enough in passing, or do you want to just fail, and not get to the next grade? So I think each person, it's a little different, but you can change and you can grow and you can get smarter and you can get stronger. You can have better stamina. These are all things that are available to all of us.
What position did you play in soccer?
Either center back or point striker, because I had the very fast speed to go in either direction. So even if somebody would get past me, I could catch up to you.
You'd be a nightmare.
I could catch up to you. But this is one thing that I learned from my mom, because and I've taken this everywhere, and it's made things very easy for me to learn if I actually was interested in learning them. When she would take me to those classes as a kid, my mom would be the person in the class who would ask the most questions, because she took the classes with me. She didn't just send me to the class. She went in those piano classes, those music theory classes, and she took them with me. And the thing I saw from her is that she would be the person who would ask the most questions in the class. And the teachers would sometimes get annoyed with her. They'd look at her and be like, okay, Ubong, another question. She'd be like, yeah, can you explain this? And yeah, because she'd ask hella questions. I'd be like, Mom. But at a certain point, I started doing the same shit. And I ask a lot of questions. So I say this because at the last jiu-jitsu tournament I went to, in the absolute division, I won my first 2 matches, and then I lost by 2 points to this guy. He was like 19. He's been doing jiu-jitsu since he was like 5. So he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. But I lost by 2 points. And I didn't necessarily feel like I was massively outclassed, but literally right after the match, I saw him. He went over to his corner. He was super tired. And then I went, and his family was right there. And I was like, dude, what did you notice in that match? First off, I congratulated him. I said, that was an amazing match. But I was like, tell me, what do you think allowed you to beat me in this match? And he told me exactly what he thinks I did wrong. And then we followed each other, and now we're cool. He's a cool dude. But I wanted to know right at that moment, what the fuck as my opponent, what do you think I could have done? And he told me. I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Not going to make that mistake again. Most people aren't going to go to someone who just beat them and ask them why you beat me. I do the same shit in practice. If somebody manages to do something on me, how'd you do that? Why'd you do that? How'd you get in that position? If you're relentless with asking questions and figuring out the answers, there's nothing you can't figure out. And I got that from my mom, right? That's that parental example. So if you're a parent, feed your kids with that mindset, because it'll make the biggest difference for them as they get older.
Imagine doing that in business. Somebody's in the same business as you. Call them up, cold call. Hey man, you're really fucking good at what you do. How are you kicking our ass all the time? They might not want to share it, but you don't have any idea. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could find somebody else that has, business experience that's advanced, if you can't get the information from your direct competitor, because it might be a little bit different than sport. But a lot of times people do want to see you get better. A lot of times people want to see improvements. I think in that case, that's a great example of it. Like, that guy could have been like, you know what, man, like, I don't share that kind of stuff. I've been doing this since I was 5, and I had to learn it and earn it myself. And
yeah.
I would love to tell you what you did wrong, but I want to keep some of this stuff to myself. It'd be really rare that you run into people like that. People that have apparel businesses or people that are in the fitness industry, sometimes it might not be wise to go to your direct competition, but you could probably find someone that's a little bit more indirect.
Yeah.
And they'll probably give you a lot of information. Sometimes people aren't comfortable giving away certain information, but I have friends in the industry, and Matt Vincent and Kelly Starrett, and like we've shared everything. I'm not concerned. I can give other people information, and I'm not like, oh my God, what's going to happen if they do like way better than I do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep doing things the way I do them, and hopefully I can keep growing. And there's not a limit on how much success is out there.
Yeah.
There's not, just because somebody else made a lot of money doesn't mean that you can't make a lot of money. Just because somebody else is, winning jiu-jitsu tournaments doesn't mean that you can't figure out a way. There's a lot of success out there to be had, and I think we sometimes are closed off to even asking a good question, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got to get you out of here, Mark.
All right.
Yeah, you're on another podcast. So thank you, everybody, for checking out the live stream. Sincerely appreciate it. It was a cool conversation amongst the humans in here. So, if you guys want to catch another live podcast, make sure you hit the bell notification so that way you guys get notifications when we go live. Please make sure you follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. And huge shout out to Element for sponsoring today's episode. Links to them down in the YouTube description as well as podcast show notes. My Instagram and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z, and on TikTok at the Andrew Z. I promise I'll start posting stuff eventually. It's that damn interest level.
Boy.
Nsima, where you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Yin Yang on TikTok and Twitter, Mark.
At Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.